Hi, this is Kevin Deal from Upscale Audio, and today we're going to meet Max Mod from Fyne Audio.
Hi Kevin, how are you?
Good. We brought Max over here from Scotland. Well, actually, you live in England.
I live in England, very close though. Same thing, really.
Same thing.
Both cold.
And Max is one of the senior management from Fyne Audio, and he has blessed us with, man, I gotta just say something. I have not dealt with a company, well, I deal with some very, very nice companies, but you guys are up at the top of the people that I've dealt with for being gracious and wonderful and cool and fun. And, compared to where I've been coming from on this journey, it's like a breath of fresh air, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Man. Yeah,
but
man.
Do you know what the secret is for us? We kind of like what we do, and it's just us. You know, camera aside and all that. I was a musician, well, still am, too old now, but I like playing records. I've just bought myself a new hi-fi. So we were talking about it the other night.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of weird. The buzz is still there that I had as a teenager. You know, I don't have as much time now.
Yeah.
Got a bit more money, but don't have as much time. But
yeah. And the
like
thing is, and we're going to talk about this because you got to listen to what's going on here. This is very special, but I just got to say that the other people at your company, at Fyne Audio, it's all the senior management from...
Well, there's the 5 founder members,
Yeah. Or all ex-Tannoy senior management, right?
Well, technically speaking, to be exact, I never officially worked for Tannoy, but I was their UK distributor. Then I did the marketing for them. Then I took on half of their other distributors to run around. But technically, I never had. I was always external. Not many people knew that, but there isn't really a lot of difference.
Yeah.
The other 4 guys, my partners and my friends, Dr. Paul, Angie, Gail, Stuart, well, circumstances changed and basically we needed a job.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said, well, why don't you do it yourself? And Dr. Paul's ears picked up and it was like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do my own thing. And we're like, right, let's put the band together. We've got some ideas. And then it was like, what we're going to call ourselves, and that actually took longer to decide on the name than the Loudspeakers. We knew we didn't want to do what we'd done in the past because we'd done that. Very respectful of that. Very proud of our past. I am too, by the way, about my past at Mission and at Wharfdale because I was sales director for Mission and Wharfdale back in the late 80s, 90s, and noughties.
But the fact is, and I don't want to interrupt you. What you want to do is take what was happening back in 2014, 2015, and take it a leap forward, and that's what we're going to be talking about right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because this is a leap forward.
Yeah, no, this is completely different, and guess we've been blessed. We've worked hard. God only knows. We take nothing for granted, and we've had a lot of success. Since we started 7 years ago in 2017.
Yeah.
I guess the only mild criticism we've ever had is that people fell in love with the 7 Series when we launched it. You probably can't see it from the angle of the camera here, but this swooping sort of like an aircraft wing curve, it's actually more beautiful from the side, this speaker, than from the front. It's very special. So we launched the 7 Series in 2019 to huge fanfare, mega press as always, lovely. But a few people said, I want it, but I want more. I want it to have F1 performance, which is our flagship model. So we had the idea from what we did with the 5 Series, where we did a standard version, then a SP, a special production version. That's what SP stands for. We can come back to that. People said, will you please work your SP, your special production magic, on the already beautiful 7 Series? So we populated it, or we filled it with drive unit, plinth, everything from the flagship F1 model, and here it is. It's taken us a bit too long to do it, but finally, excuse the pun, you can now have the top performance in more of a contemporary or modern cabinet, because some people strangely find the appearance of the vintage models a little bit too old or a bit big for them. But they like this more modern.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you something. Before we started filming, I said, you gotta get a picture of this curve because it's epic. and how it would look in your home, because it's so amazing. I said, you got to have a picture with a glow around the shape of the cabinet, because it is that cool. But what I want to know is, I got blown away by the sound. And I know that this driver, look, all of your drivers, I've taken note. I've been studying up since I started talking to you. I mean, you guys cross things over differently than I've ever seen before at a different frequency. And what I've noticed is these things are so fast on their feet. Tell us about this driver and what's going on with the phase correction plug.
We call it an ISO-flare drive. It's a point source drive unit, you know, and we've talked about this before. So as humans, we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, only 1 mouth. That's what a point source drive unit is. The sound is coming from 1 point. The time alignment, therefore, is very accurate. The off-axis information is very accurate. But this, you know, this is our ISO-flare drive unit. That's like our internal brand, if you like. It has isotropic properties, and the waveguide, or the flare, a little bit like your mouth, how the sound comes out. So we combine the 2 words, isotropic and flare, isoflare. That's what we call our point source drive units. But it's just a bit special. It really is very special. I mean, the crossover point on these things is 750, you know, which is quite impressive in itself.
Now, can I say something before you just bounce off of that? That's the point I'm making. I noticed that the bass response, because they're crossing it over at a lower point than what I've seen before in a driver of this type. And the benefit is that the mid-range is a little faster, and it blends a little bit better with the outer cone. But then the outer cone, because it's crossed over a little, because this is crossed over lower, the bass driver can do what it needs to do.
Absolutely. And when you combine that with our patented bass tracks diffuser system, it is as tight as a drum. I can say that because I was a semi-pro drummer for many years, and it's like that drum bass. I'm a really bad bass guitar player. I wish I was good. I'm an okay drummer, but I'm really into that tight, that definition, so I can hear the separation between the kick drum and the bass guitar, and you really can't on most loudspeakers. Sometimes when you first put these things on, especially when they're a bit tight and they're not run in, they need a few hundred hours. You can sometimes think, oh, is there enough bass? And then they loosen up a bit, and it's not that there isn't enough bass. There's a huge amount of bass. It's just that you're not used to the definition and how tight it is, and then you really get into it, and you go back onto a normal loudspeaker, and you just think, oh, that's a bit of a woolly mess. There's no definition there. It's the advantages of the bass tracks diffuser system, the genius that Dr. Paul Mills is developing it. For me, it's amplified on this special production. I mean, I'm spending my own cash on this speaker, and I'm not saying that just as a fine, you know, shareholder and sales guy. This is, I'm super.
It's epic.
Well, ever since we first started speaking, Kevin, I was like, this is the one. It's taken us a while to get around to doing it, you know, with all the trickle-down performance from the flagship F1 model. It's just
and I gotta say something. What he just said, I want to drive that home. You got to let speakers break in 500 hours. I tell people 1,000 hours, and it's really, really important. It is so critical. And also, I got to say one more thing, that you got to go hear these at your dealer. And if you don't have a dealer, get one. You know, I'm not telling you to buy it from us. I want you to buy it from your local dealer. Every town's better off with a hi-fi store, you know, and a record store. And I want to make sure that you support them and ask for Fyne audio. All right, so we have this now. I noticed the suspension, and I have gone and read about it already, so I know what's going on here, but it's genius. It's not just because it looks cool.
Well, it does kind of look cool, but we call it fine flute, and what it helps to achieve is some of the surface energy that dissipates out to the outside, to the perimeter. It actually terminates and helps break that up. So it's controlling the unwanted energy. It's actually quite small, but when you listen to it, it really works. And actually, by altering the rubber, we're not adding any weight to the suspension. We're actually using the design of the fine fluting to do the job of some older double roll surround systems that can be a little bit slower to work and a little bit stiff. And this is super fast, and it still deals with that sort of inherent problem, you know.
So a lot of people were using a not a lot of people. Some people have used roll cloth surrounds, which is a fine way to do it.
We did when we first started, Kevin. We used it on the original F1, and then we thought, as always with us guys, we're thinking,
oh, I didn't know that.
We can do better.
Oh, okay.
We can improve it.
Yeah, roll cloth surrounds are cool. I mean, but the whole thing is you have multiple rolls. It's cloth.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And it's
slow.
it's slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like we're always tweaking it. Sometimes we change things before the before the brochure or the specifications even printed, you know, because we're always keen to add more or do better. And whether that's, for example, adding a higher level of cryogenic treatment to a product than we do on some of the low models, like this is full cryo, which is Dr. Paul's latest toy that it's all in-house. So we've got the control. You know, so we de-stress our components, cables, soldering. You know, he's there. Don't know what it is. He loves his crossovers. He's always there at the bench, soldering the crossovers and playing with the cryo machine. And
that's the cool thing about this company. And I always talk about that. I complain about it. The bean counters. When companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, the bean counters get involved, and they start asking for expenses and, you know, all of these things. And they don't want you to have fun. That's always an issue, getting the dollars for research and development. And you had told me that Dr. Mills said, oh my God, I want to have cryo. I want to experiment with cryo with different things. So you guys, what did you guys do? You went out and you bought him a cryo lab, right?
Yeah, we've done, it looks like a big chest freezer really, but I mean, it goes down to, I think it's around, I think you guys are on the Fahrenheit scale, where it's like minus 150, I think Antarctica goes down to about minus 90.
Yeah.
Well, we're going down to like minus 150 in the factory on a daily basis. You've got to go to outer space. It's insane.
Yeah.
You know, but NASA and a lot of the F1 circus use the technology because it does help de-stress the components. But the fact that it's all in-house and we've invested in it, we can de-stress it in a better way, according to Dr. Paul, because we freeze things down more slowly and sort of bring them back to life, as it were, more slowly as well. And it just does a better job.
And you're doing that to the crossover in this case.
The crossover and the cables and everything.
And what about the crossover and the cables in this? Because I was duly impressed by what's going on.
Yeah, it's a completely new crossover. So obviously it's the you know, let's call it the engine and the heart and everything inside this is derived or is trickled down technology from F1. But this isn't an F1, so there is still a new crossover specific for this 703SP model, which has, you know, cloud-tick capacitors and the whole 9 yards. And
Neotech wiring.
Yeah, Neotech wiring.
Right. I mean, it's badass.
Tick, 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 tick. It's like, it's as good as we can do.
Yeah.
And this, and I probably shouldn't say this keeps some of the big vintage models honest. It's that good. It's that good.
Yeah.
And I can't really give this a bigger compliment than that it keeps the big vintage models on their toes, you know. And
so we have the second driver,
bass driver
here,
you know, and it just, again, it works because it's a twin cavity design, and it ties in with the bass tracks diffuser, which I drone on about endlessly because it's just the best thing that ever happened to a drummer that listens to music, because it gives that tight control. I mean, I think just very quickly, if I can mention it, Kevin, I would, you know, I go on about it a lot, I think, to the point that people you've got to set these things up properly. You know, you need to break them in for sure, minimum 200 hours, as much as you can give them, the better. But you need to spend some time with the spikes. The spikes you can adjust from the top, and you can lock. You want this thing bolted down to the floor, so it's not wobbling, it's not moving. Pretend that your loudspeaker is like, I'm looking at the camera. Well, it's on a tripod and it's very stable. If you've got a camera that's moving around, the image is going to be blurred. That's exactly the same thing happens to a loudspeaker. You know, and if it's rocking around and it's not solid, you know, you will get a blurred image. The bass won't be under control. So you kind of wasted a load of money getting a top loudspeaker with a bass tracks diffuser. You know, you just spend a little bit of time getting the thing level, getting it so it's not wobbling around, get it broken in. You know, it's a very efficient loudspeaker.
Tell us about the bass tracks then, because that's a patented design.
Yeah, so in simple terms, if you were to see underneath, imagine you've got a cone, like a little mountain. So the energy, the air, it's like the exhaust of a car. When these things are rocking, you better believe the amount of air that these things are moving is unbelievable. So the air transitions down through the loudspeaker, hits the top of the peak of the cone, and it turns what we would call plane wave energy, which is coming straight down like the exhaust pipe, hits the top of the cone, and it's split. It turns it into a 360-degree waveform. Whereas most loudspeakers, you know, the energy will come out and it'll just hit the floor. So it's just like having a handful of stones, dropping them in a still pool of water. It's just a mess. The way this works is you're dropping one stone or pebble into a pool of water and the rings radiate out from that central point. So it really helps reduce the boundary effect, we call it. So you can put a fairly large speaker like this so close to the wall or in the corners and you get away with it. I mean, we do shows, as you know, all over the world, and sometimes we have some very small hotel bedrooms or whatever, and people are just like, how on earth have you got that loudspeaker to sound as tight as that in a small bedroom? And it's basically because we set them up properly, obviously, and the bass tracks diffuser system keeps it all tight. It really limits that, or helps control the boundary effect, as we call it, you know. So that's the big advantage of our patented bass tracks diffuser system.
I mean, now you've got everything though, because I always tell people about, you know, the single point source drivers and how well they can work in crappy rooms. I've told you about, you know, I've talked about this, right? How they can work in rooms that have just got some problems of something too close to the speaker or whatever the problem is. They just are easier to place and get decent performance out of, even in a really bad room. We're also addressing the bottom end performance of bad rooms, because I got it, right? You got a spouse you got to work with, or you got furnishings you have to work with. Sometimes you have to make compromises.
Absolutely.
And this allows you to still get that performance that you want, right?
Well, my dear wife is the compromise, and she will, you know, she wants the furnishings that she wants, and it's always a discussion, of course, but you know, we don't live in a recording studio or in a perfect environment. We live our lives, you know. We all love our hi-fi systems. Most of us are not blessed with a specific room. So we want something that's going to look good, and we want something that's going to sound good.
I don't know if I have this on there straight. Now, this is the first time they've done something in a natural walnut.
Yeah, the
but you also have them in a gloss walnut, which I love the gloss walnut.
It's a real piano finish, Kevin.
It's
a
real
real
piano
piano
my God,
finish.
I just died. But I've taken a poll, and between the gloss walnut and the natural walnut, it's about 50-50 over with my staff.
Yeah, that's probably about right. So the original 700 series, as I say, we launched in 2019, that's done so well for us, that was only available in the piano finish. So piano walnut, piano black, or piano white. We never did that. I don't want to call it a standard range, but the normal range, let's call it. We never did that. Yeah. Because back then, of course, we never had the natural walnut that of course we have now because of vintage. So we decided, well, let's do it in the vintage natural walnut as well as the high gloss walnut. So we might do the standard 700 series in this natural walnut finish as well at some point. But
you have them in piano black?
Piano black, piano white, piano walnut, natural walnut.
Okay. All right.
4 choices.
All right.
Yeah.
And then let's see, there was something I had just forgotten about, and I don't remember what it is. I just lost it again. 94 dB efficient.
From memory on this one, yeah.
And they seem to have a very easy impedance curve.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 8 ohm load. It's
right, because I ran them with a 36 watt tube amp, and it was just rocking it. It was just rocking it.
These things are so accurate, you know, they will show up any discrepancies in either a badly set up system, anything that's maybe quite, you better believe it. These guys are a looking glass back at the rest of your system. So,
right on.
You know, it needs to be good. Your system really is as good as its weakest link, isn't it?
Yep.
You
And
know?
so there's two models in this new 700 SP series. This is a 703.
Yeah,
And
then
there's the
a
704, which is
702.
I'm sorry, the 702,
Yeah.
which is an 8-inch. This is a 10-inch.
Yeah, this is a twin 10. The 702 SP is a twin 8.
Yep.
Special production. They're both actually made on the same production line in Scotland at the Fyne factory as the F1 is made. So it's like it's all in, you know.
And this is made in Scotland. Dr. Paul may actually make your crossover or one of your drivers because he likes to be in there just, he's there every day. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, that's the cool thing about this is they pop me into a meeting with them like that. I mean, it's just...
Well, you're coming over soon, I think, as well.
I'm going to come over. Hell yeah. Of course. We're going to wait until it warms up, though.
Yeah, no, I'd do that.
Because I went over there before they closed that other factory. I went to the other factory in 2019 and they closed it, but I went there in the winter also. So I'm going to avoid that. So when it warms up, probably April.
Yeah.
Maybe around the time of Munich. Anyway, I want to thank MaxMod so much and thank the people at Fyne Audio for being such a great enthusiast-owned company. So thanks for coming out.
Our pleasure.
Thank you,
Kevin.
folks.
Cheers.